I was a queen, not a captive. Dramatic pause. I commanded armies and claimed empires. They expected me to beg for mercy. They dreamed of seeing me, the last Pharaoh of Egypt, dragged through the streets of Rome in chains. Short pause, a spectacle for their filthy crowds. Octavian wanted my shame more than he wanted my gold. He forgot that I was the daughter of Ptolemy. I chose poison. Dramatic pause. I chose dignity. To choose your own death is the last piece of power left to a fallen ruler. But to truly comprehend my final choice, you must first understand the chilling truth of my inheritance. In the house of Ptolemy, blood was the water we drank, and murder was the only true sacrament. Pause. I inherited a dynasty already poisoned, a dynasty that had devoured itself from within through centuries of incest and paranoid violence. My childhood was not one of playful lessons and gentle tutors. It was a constant, grueling masterclass in assassination and betrayal. Pause. We did not have rivals. We had kin, and kin were the most dangerous enemies of all. You learn quickly that trust is an illusion reserved for fools and children. The throne of Egypt was not a seat of comfort. It was a razor's edge, a chilling pedestal where one wrong gesture could send you tumbling into the blades of your own family. Dramatic pause. The most profound psychological scar of my life was not left by Rome, but by my own bloodline. The sheer existential dread that every feast could be your last. Pause. The knowledge that the loving smile of a sister or the firm hand of a brother concealed a lethal ambition. The early elimination of my siblings, Arsinoe, Berenice, was not just politics, it was a tradition, a gruesome, necessary ritual. They called us gods, but we were merely highly successful, extremely vicious predators. My duty, my primary function, was to ensure the continuity of the predator, to not become the prey. My initial deposition, my exile from Alexandria by the weak, petulant child, Ptolemy III, was not merely a loss of power. Dramatic pause. It was a primal shock. It forced me from the gilded cage of divinity into the harsh, undeniable truth of the desert. I learned that divine right means nothing against Roman steel. The gods grant you the title, the legions grant you the authority. Pause. It was at that moment, sitting in exile, planning my desperate return, that I fully understood the game. I needed a Roman, a great Roman, not just as an ally, but as an overwhelming, insurmountable shield. I had to shed the soft, naive skin of the princess and adopt the immutable, hard shell of the pharaoh. Deep breath. The price of that transformation was the capacity for true selfless love. That part of me, the gentle, dreaming girl, died somewhere on the road back to Alexandria. What returned was Cleopatra, the last god queen, meticulously calculated, ruthlessly pragmatic, and terrifyingly ambitious. I was taught to be a woman, yes, but first I was taught to be a king. Men saw my beauty as a weapon, but they missed the steel beneath the velvet. A man can rage, a woman must calculate. Pause. A man can lose a battle and fight again. A queen who shows weakness loses everything. Did they call me a whore? Let them. They called me powerful too. Short pause. And in the end, only the powerful write their own epitaphs. The arrival of Julius Caesar in Alexandria was not a coincidence. It was a seismic collision of fate. He came to settle a local dispute, but he found a prize far greater than tribute. He found me. My entry into his presence, rolled out of a carpet, delivered as a precious, highly combustible package, was not an act of desperation. Dramatic pause. It was a calculated theatrical masterpiece. I bypassed his guards, his advisors, his rigid Roman bureaucracy. I presented myself not as a defeated queen, but as a bold, irresistible equal. I understood Caesar immediately. He was order. He was cold, magnificent logic made flesh. He was the embodiment of the Roman will to dominate chaos. He was not swayed by simple feminine charm. He was drawn to power, to intellect, to an ambition that mirrored his own. Pause. I did not woo him with silks and wine alone. I captivated him with the Ptolemaic library, with my command of languages, with my absolute certainty that together we could rule the Mediterranean, I providing the wealth and knowledge, he the unstoppable force. Our union was a political contract written in the heat of passion. It resulted in the only possible heir who could threaten the very core of the Republic, our son, Ptolemy Caesar, or Caesarion. He was my masterpiece, my ultimate political weapon, a boy with the blood of the pharaohs and the might of the greatest Roman general. He was the future I saw, a hybrid empire centered not on the Tiber, but on the Nile. My time in Rome, living openly in Caesar's villa, was an absolute, unmitigated humiliation for the Roman Senate, and thus a complete triumph for me. They resented the foreign queen, the African who dared to sit beside the dictator Perpetuo. They saw the jewels, they missed the threat. Dramatic pause. I was a living symbol of Caesar's disregard for their traditions, their laws, and their brittle self-proclaimed superiority. I breathed the air of their hatred, and it fueled me. I was their poison, delivered by their own hero. Then came the Ides of March. Short pause. The moment the news reached Alexandria, the air turned instantly cold. The shock was not grief for the man, though I respected him immensely, but the terror of political vacuum. My shield, the glorious, impenetrable Roman shield, had splintered into 100 treacherous pieces. I fled. Pause. I took my son, my only claim, and I returned to wait, to consolidate, to prepare for the next inevitable conflict. I knew that my survival depended on finding another great Roman, but this time I vowed the relationship would be less one-sided. I would choose a man who worshipped the queen, not just the cause. I would choose a man who would love me not just as a tool, but as the destiny he was always meant to embrace. And that man was Mark Antony. I met Mark Antony in Tarsus. Short pause. It was not a meeting of political necessity. It was an intersection of two forces of nature. Where Caesar was the cold fire of calculation, Antony was the raging inferno of life itself. Pause. He lived without apology. When I sailed toward him, I didn't arrive in a simple galley. I arrived on a gilded barge. Dramatic pause, draped in purple and gold, perfumed so heavily that the scent of my ship was carried on the winds long before the sight of my sails. I was Venus rising from the sea, a goddess appearing to her devotee. He was overwhelmed. Pause. I meant for him to be. Antony was easier to love than Caesar. Caesar demanded respect. Antony demanded joy. He was flawed, magnificent, and desperately human. Porters. He allowed me to be the strategic mind, the intellectual foundation of our alliance, while he provided the military might. I saw in him a partner, a true co-ruler. Short pause, not just a protector. We were two hemispheres of a new world, a grand, vibrant Eastern empire centered in Alexandria, finally free from the petty grey tyranny of Rome. Our union was consecrated not just by passion, but by 3 beautiful children, my most precious bargaining chips, my claim to a future dynasty. and Antony, in his magnificent arrogance, made the donations of Alexandria. He openly ceded Roman-held territory to our children. Pause, crowning Caesarion as the true heir of Caesar. He defied Rome, not subtly, but with a magnificent, arrogant roar. It was the boldest political move of the century, and it signed his death warrant. Octavian, that cold, methodical young man, Caesar's nephew, was our true enemy. He didn't fight us with armies alone, he fought us with propaganda. He portrayed me as the temptress, the foreign witch who corrupted a great Roman general. Dramatic pause. He turned our powerful, passionate alliance into a simple, humiliating tale of a weak man enslaved by an evil woman. And the Roman people, fearful of anything they couldn't control, believed him. The battle was lost in the Roman Forum before our ships even set sail for Actium. The Battle of Actium. Pause. It haunts my dreams, a chaotic, miserable disaster. The sea churned black with the blood of our dreams. When I saw that our ships were being outmaneuvered by Octavian's meticulous fleet, I knew the war was over. I made the first fatal decision. I ordered the Egyptian fleet to withdraw. I fled, and Antony, my lion, abandoned his post and followed me. Dramatic pause. That act, his decision to choose love over duty, sealed his fate and shattered his spirit. I had wanted his love, but at that moment I needed his command. The siege of Alexandria was a slow, agonizing suffocation. Our resources dwindled. Our allies betrayed us. Antony, once so fearless, fell into despair, fueled by drink and paranoia. He was no longer the magnificent hero who arrived in Tarsus. He was a broken man, haunted by the spectre of his nephew's victory. The final blow was Antony's agonizing, clumsy suicide. Pause. He fell upon his own sword, but did not die instantly. He demanded to be brought to me into the mausoleum where I had taken refuge. I pulled him up to the window with ropes, and he died in my arms. He died a hero, short a pause, but his death left me utterly, horribly alone. My great shield was gone, my love was gone, and then came Octavian's messenger. He promised me clemency. He promised safety for my children. He was, of course, a liar. Dramatic pause. His true reward was the spectacle of my suffering. He planned to march me, Cleopatra, the great queen, through the streets of Rome, parading me in chains behind his chariot, to show his own people that not even the last living descendant of Alexander the Great could defy Rome. I had faced death countless times in my life, from poison, from daggers, from political decree. But this death, the death of dignity, the death of a king's pride, was the only one I truly feared. I was not afraid of the void, I was afraid of the shame. Deep breath. This was the final strategic move of my life, choosing my method of execution. For a Ptolemy, for a pharaoh, the body is a temple, and the ending must be an act of will. I was not defeated, I was merely finished. I chose the ass. Dramatic pause. The bite of the sacred serpent, the symbol of my divinity, of my urious crown. It was a clean death, a painless, noble exit, a quiet ascent back to the gods. I was already divine. The serpent merely confirmed my return. I left this world not in chains, but in my royal robes, surrounded by my loyal servants, with my crown upon my head. Let them write what they will in Rome, that I was a whore, a witch, a failure. Pause. They cannot erase the final truth. I was a queen, and I died on my own terms. I chose poison over shame, and in that single final act of defiance, I claimed my eternal victory.